Good afternoon. Like I said, I'm Tom Cox. This is Viraj. We're with the Illinois Department of Transportation. And today we would like to talk to you about tracking the development of roadway construction plans. We're both designers, and this is something that's really important to us. It's something that's really helped us out. And what's been interesting is, this morning I was looking at some of the concerns of a lot of the DOTs, and I guess I haven't seen a lot of other DOTs using GIS for this purpose. So hopefully you find it of interest. So anyway, at IDOT, we're broken up into 9 districts. Viraj and I are both from District 6, which is in Springfield, Illinois, the capital, home of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum. If you're ever in the area, definitely recommend that you check it out. And I mentioned that we're in the district. We're actually under project implementation, which is, as you can see, highways, transit, freight and rail, and aeronautics. Now, in the districts, we primarily highways, so that's mainly what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is something that I think that's probably common to really any organization. It's communication, really. And our problem in our district is that we're not in one building. We're actually scattered all over. In Springfield, we've got 2 locations, and we're actually on the far edge of our district. So then we have another satellite office over in Quincy on the other side. So communication is a problem because we can't just walk down the hall and talk to somebody else. So GIS has been awesome for that particular purpose. And if you think about it, though, in some ways I'm surprised that communication is still a problem because, we can meet with people in person at times, and we got all these electronic forms of email, and you can call somebody. We can even do virtual meetings now, texting, radio. So you wonder, how could we still have a communication problem? And we do. But for the type of work that we do, GIS Online has just been awesome for that. So the reason why we developed this system was because that we juggle many projects in the districts. And of course, our #1 goal is putting out construction plans, specs, and estimate. That's what we're constantly working towards. And so we needed a system to help make sure that we would make those letting dates. So to just give you an idea of the number of projects that we work with at IDOT, and this is just in our district, District 6, we put out about 100 projects annually, and that's between maybe 12 team leaders. So if you break that down, and that'd be the number of sets of construction plans that we put out, and that can range from just simple resurfacing projects to big multi-million-dollar bridge replacement type project. And we're also, in addition to working in the annual program, we're also always working in our multi-year program, projects that are funded. And then we also have some unfunded projects, but we're hoping they come into the program soon, and so we're working on those. So what I'm getting at is that there are a lot of projects that we're managing. Now, as a designer, I like to think of us as middlemen, really, because we're the ones responsible of actually putting out the plans. But we deal with our environmental section, bridge office, geometrics, all these support sections. They're just supporting us, but ultimately we're the ones responsible making sure that we meet that letting date. So we needed a good system where we could communicate with everyone. As far as some of the attributes in our system, usually for every project, we've got something like 75 attributes. And the way those work for us is we ask like 3 basic questions of like each one of those support sections. Like let's say land acquisition. You know, if we're going to put out a set of roadway construction plans, you have to make sure that the property is purchased, otherwise the project can't go to letting. And so we'll just ask the question as far as an attribute. Does this project require right-of-way? And that's really just a yes/no type question. And then, if so, have we given land ac construction limits yet? And then, if so, you know, how many parcels have they acquired so far? And you could look at, you know, any one of those sections that we deal with, and it's very similar. You know, like with the bridge office, have we gotten them a bridge condition report? If so, have they approved it? If so, what's the approval date? You know, that sort of thing. And so you can imagine if, well, a little bit later we'll go live. We'll actually show it to you. We're actually logged into GIS Online, so we'll actually show that to you at the end of the presentation. So good, continue running through. But I guess what I'm getting at is there's really thousands of questions to ask in general because there's so many projects, so many attributes. So what's happening now is that we've gotten an AGO account for everyone in our district, or at least anybody who would be involved at all with the projects. So the first thing that they do when they get into the office each day is we find that they log in right away, even though these are not GIS people, and that's the key. That's really the difference here, is that I think we've gone from just GIS people to now everybody can have access to this information, just as users, really. I mean, it's huge in our district, and that's really why I've gotten involved. I just saw this opportunity a couple of years ago, and you know, you start talking with everybody else, and everybody was in agreement that we needed to come up with a different system that would work. And you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about getting buy-in, and that's so important. So we've spent for the last 18 months just talking with a lot of people, getting everybody convinced, and then what happens is people like it, they start telling their other coworkers, and it's just really, you know, I thought, when I saw this 2 years ago, this opportunity, I thought this thing was just gonna take off. And what happened was, it took off like this, and then at some point, like just recently, it is just, you know, exploding where everybody in our district seems to be buying into this, because, you know, not only do they have this information at their desk, as you, I'm sure know, it works just as well on a phone and tablet. So they're getting access to this information anywhere, you know, whether it be in their desk or in the field, or even our field people are using this system. And, you know, we did have a system previously for tracking projects, and we used Access for it. It was okay. It was some of the problems that we had. Well, first of all, it's not spatial. So what would happen is, you know, you get this report that describes this project that's assigned to you. You know, it's from 0.2 miles from some certain side road, you know, south 6 miles, or, you know, something like this. And so whenever you're talking to somebody about a project, they're always trying to like visualize in their mind like where that project is. And so now that we have this spatial system, that's really not the case. You're talking to somebody about a project, they can automatically see where that project is located. That's just our, you know, basic template for the online map center. But again, with this new system, it's spatial. Oh, here's another big thing too, is that there's multiple editors. You know, with our other tracking system, we had one person in the entire district that could do the editing. He set up the system. It was a great system, but it was kind of complicated, and he was really the only one that could make the changes. And I'm I'm sure you know that, with groups in AGO, that, it just works fantastic for setting permissions. And so we've been able to set it up where we have many editors. Also, it's live. Our previous system, it was a status type system. We would meet every couple months. We'd sit around for, sometimes an entire day talking about these projects. Somebody would be taking notes, and then somebody would have to go back and enter the information. And then it eventually gets entered and gets pushed out to everyone else. Where with this new system, as you know, in GIS Online, as soon as you make that change, everybody can see that change immediately. And so, like we always like to say, everybody now has access anytime, anywhere. So we've come a long way. And here's a slide I was showing you earlier. We're bringing all the project information together. And then we're not just using it, and it's not just the immediate support people. Now we're pushing out that information to really everybody in our districts, even people in our headquarters, virtually anybody within our organization that we want to give access to this, we can do so. And again, for them too, it's not just like they have to be at their desk. They can be out and about. Even for our regional engineer, he used to carry around a stack of papers like this thick. And that was because he needed to be prepared at any time. And if a politician was to ask him a question about the roadway job, he would need to be able to respond. And so we've gone from that to now, of course, he brings up his phone. He uses the Explorer app like everything else. You open it up on a map, you drive down to it, he clicks on it, and immediately he's seeing all that project information. In addition to Explorer, we're also using Collector. So far, like I said, we haven't been using this that long, but so far some of the applications for Collector are, for ourselves in design and studies and plans, when we go out on a field check, we take pictures of erosion and different problem areas, and we tend to kind of zoom in. And then what we were doing is the designer would go back, you'd place a picture in a folder, and then 2 months later, you'd look at this picture and you'd be like, where is this located? And so now when we go out and do a field check, we take an iPhone with us right now, take a picture of it. It gives us an opportunity to key in comments. And again, everything that we do, it doesn't just benefit us, it benefits everybody, because when I'm out there in the field on my field check, the second I enter information to submit that feature, immediate communication. Yeah. It's communication. Yeah, it all goes back to communication. Yeah. Some of the additional uses besides this tracking system, and I really don't have a lot of time. I want to make sure we have enough time because Faraj is going to show you actually how the system is set up. But in any case, Illinois is set up as a grid system. Basically, every mile squared, there are survey monuments. And so when the roads were built, they were built right on those section lines. So right in the middle of the road, we've got these survey monuments. And there were so many, they were so scattered out that nobody really made the effort to let everybody know where these are located. And so the project would go to letting, it'd be a resurfacing job, we would mill the road, those survey monuments would get destroyed, and then our surveyors would have to go back out and reestablish that point. Well, now everybody has access to this information. It's just an additional layer in their map. so that they can see where these monuments are. So if you're a designer, you can immediately tell if there's a monument within your project, and when you're putting together the construction plans, you can let others know, you know, that it's there, and so they're out looking for it, so they don't mill it up, you know, mill it out. We're also getting started with highway permits, utility permits, guardrail inventory, historical data, ADA ramps. That's a big thing with us. Our Attorney General's office has told us that every ramp, you know, every sidewalk ramp within our district has to be made compliant within 25 years. And you know, that sounds like a long time, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of ramps. You know, we need to make sure they have the detectable warnings, that the grade is, you know, has a certain slope to it, and a few other items that we look for. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Tom. I'm basically going to run through how the system is set up. Our philosophy is simply KISS, keep it simple, stupid. This has worked for us so far. So the data elements that we utilize are vector data, essentially points and line features. And the lines basically are the project limits that we work with. And the points are pretty much any other attribute that the project tracks or the engineers track. Our base data come from our programming unit. Essentially, they track a lot of information. We only need certain type of information for our tracking system. So it can include both geospatial as well as non-geospatial data. And the basic information can range from funding year, scope, project limit, CRS information, ADT, key route stationing, all you can really think of we use. So how do we utilize the programming data? Well, we basically pull the data out from the PPS, essentially. That's what the programming unit is called, or their database is called. And we pull the data out and make a customized table that refreshes and updates itself or replaces itself every 24 hours, along with a few other processes. And our programming data basically contains spatial data that could, you know, beginning and end station, essentially key route information. That's our LRS. And our unique ID that we use, or the key that we use, is called the PPS number. That's how we hook the data into our internal system. So the lines, as I said before, is the physical length of our project using key route information. We run through dynamic segmentation, which essentially is run every 24 hours using the key route. We also do data normalization, which essentially reduces the redundancy as well as flattened records. And we also do update tasks, which can range from auto-generating notification email when a new point is created or line is created, and as well as other data formatting. So let's talk about points, both spatial and non-spatial. Spatial points that we use are basically our system automatically places a point in the beginning of the key route information, essentially a key route station. And you see on figure 1 there is the yellow dot, and that's where the beginning station is for the key route. And as far as the non-spatial points are concerned, we have it set up where the user-defined location puts all the non-spatial data to the little boxes that you can see on the figure 2 there, as well as the spatial data housing in our district boundary itself. And these are, of course, non-spatial for the district-wide ones. All right, so internally, our unit is called Studies and Plans, and our project engineers track certain amount of data for their individual projects, and we essentially create a table that the project engineers will maintain, and they'll track it. And we usually use that data as well as the basic data that we talked about from PPS, and we merge them together. Essentially, we make a merge layer. And this basic data matchup really allows us to do filtering So it can be customized to individual level. And you know, the GIS coordinator who maintains the online maps can actually dish out the information very securely with this kind of system. You can see on this figure, you got SMP table, GPS data, as well as the coordinator who puts everything together. So once a point is created and the studies plans engineer receives the email notification saying that there's a new project, new line item, and then he looks at it and he assigns it to a project engineer. And then the project engineer basically gets it and decides who they're going to give it to. And it could be multiple people, you know, each project engineer will have 4 or 5 designers sometimes, depends. So GIS online groups allows the coordinator, creator control over the permissions. And the great thing about the groups is, and the coordinator, it helps the coordinator individualize the production as well as ancillary data. So essentially it's a one-stop shop. And when I say production data, I mean that's the data that the studies and plans engineers or the project engineers track. And the ancillary data can consist of CRS, ADT, any traffic information, really any kind of information that you need to see to track projects. So the general workflow of system consists of databases, could be multiple. The data is pushed out to the Phoenix server. And then from there, you have processes that run, including dynamic segmentation. Then the data gets pushed out to the SDE, then to the ArcGIS server, and then finally ArcGIS Online. And with the help of the coordinator, or the GIS coordinator at each district, it goes to the end user, essentially our workway designers. So as far as this system is concerned, this is individualized data management, and it's a very much a group effort. So there's a lot of involvement there, and essentially you start up with the developers, GIS coordinators to actually personalize the data for individual roadway designer or engineer or whoever. And obviously the platform is ArcGIS Online, and then it finally gets to the end user. This is a multi-level effort from a lot of people. Okay, desktop reporting. Now, the SDE level access allows the user to run reports on our desktop, which is really great because we never really had a good way of doing reporting before. I mean, you get crystal reports and everything else, which is not the most user-friendly. So this customization is really great on the system, and it could be, the permissions can be controlled on who runs the reports and all these other things through the SDE. So here is an example of what we did in our studies and plans unit. And you know, Tom and I both kind of thought it through, and these are the information that we track. So you can see on the top here, the top box here contains the basic information that we get from our programming unit. And at the bottom is the project information that the individual project engineers track. It could range from environmental, utilities, phase 1, phase 2, you know, funding, really whatever you can think of. And this is really great because this is one-stop shop right here. And hopefully don't need to run the reports anymore. We can have everything web-based, but in the meantime, I think we're gonna have to run the reports.
Yeah, change is hard. Even if change is good sometimes, change is definitely hard. And like I said, it takes that buy-in, that sort of thing. And right now, even though people have all the same information live at their fingertips for whatever reason, they still want the hard copy.
Right.
I don't, you know. But I think we'll get away from that eventually.
Yeah.
But since they want it, we give it to them, and like Raj said, it works great for them.
Yep. So keys to our success: simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. It allows for greater communication all around. It's a web-based platform, which is great because it allows for non-GIS professionals to use it on a regular basis, just like going to Google Maps. Or, you know, if you can basically open up a web browser and just click a bunch of, you know, little boxes on and off, you have the information. So that's pretty great. And it also have great reporting tools, like I showed you before. You can customize it however you like. And for us, we get our development support from our central office because we're a DOT, and they have really good developers. So we use their expertise for the database end of things. And GIS coordinators are the other important factor here. You need that at an individual district level to manage this personalized data and bring it to your final end user. As I mentioned, you need a GIS coordinator at the individual district level. That person will create, maintain maps to the end user, as well as set up permissions and customize the deliverables. And one of the biggest things that they need to do is reach out, communicate, get everybody kind of linked in to the system, and better communicate with everybody else. Now we're gonna quickly show a live demo here. So here you can kind of see a map that we did for one of our studies and plans engineer. I mean, this thing has a lot of information. I know there's a lot of layers here. We're not supposed to use this many, but we kind of have to because they're like, oh, we need to see this, we need to see this. Well, what can we do? We're supposed to generally stop at about 7, but we got to do what we got to do. And the great thing about this is, if you have a collector information and somebody in the field personnel goes out and collect a point and said, oh, hey, this culvert needs replacement or something is wrong here, and take a picture, instant communication. The people at the office can just simply see it as it happens, and it's like, hey, click on the point, get the picture, okay, this is the problem. For the scoping engineers, this is great. So, and here, I'll just quickly click on one of the dots here, and you can kind of see what we track here, from basic information to as well as detailed information the project engineers track here.
Being able to customize the attributes has been really nice. We just recently switched to that. We were using the default. So if you have a lot of attributes, it's nice that you can kind of break them down in groups and assign a different color to each one.
And that's pretty much a really rough idea of what we do, but this is very, malleable. Essentially, you can custom make it to whatever you want, really. So, thank you very much.
How many minutes?